over. Yeah, they would tell you there's an outburst of a specific type of Pokemon. So if you were to go to the route where that outburst was, you'd pretty much only run into that Pokemon. And it also drastically like increased your chance of running into a shiny.
But these alphas are only...
Or like an outbreak. I think the word outbreak is what they use, yeah.
They're only in Arceus, right?
Yeah, the alpha thing's new.
Okay.
But it's usually you're more likely to run into them during an outbreak as well.
Interesting. But yes, I was mentioning there's a new glitch that someone discovered that basically hides, it's in Breath of the Wild, that basically hides your weapon. So it looks like you're holding a weapon, but you're holding nothing.
Okay.
And it basically involves holding a weapon, sidestepping, and picking up a bomb while entering those dark ruins where it's, there's no light.
Yeah.
I don't know. People figure this stuff out, and then once you've done that,
spending way too much time in the game.
Yeah. And once you've done that, you can exit, and you're like holding the weapon, but it's invisible. So, I don't know if you can actually. I guess you can fight things with it. Maybe. Trying to figure out.
I'm assuming if it's invisible, it still has a hitbox.
Maybe. Let me see. I'm watching. Yeah. Apparently. Yeah. So it's still there. You just can't see it.
The model's just gone. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm watching Medi333.
But from the game's perspective, the meshing would still be there even if you can't see anything.
Well, I'm not sure it is actually. It's weird. Like, if you're close enough, it looks like you still hit the enemy, but like the hitbox must become very small or something.
Maybe.
Or else the flurry rush doesn't work or something, because he's trying to flurry rush a Lionel and it's not working. But I saw him hit it earlier, so I don't quite understand. I'd have to... Yeah, okay, so he does a flurry rush. Yeah, no, he's hitting it, but he's like right on top of it. It's like right touching.
It's just weird about that game is how much the hero mode kind of just fucks things up, right? So like the game is kind of designed to where while they all function slightly differently, so there's like pros and cons to each weapon, that you can pretty much beat anything with any weapon. Outside of maybe something really gimmicky like the giant boomerang, which isn't supposed to be taken seriously. But you can pretty much beat anything with any weapon until you get to fighting the highest stage Lionel, where you actually put yourself at a disadvantage by using the pole arms, like the spears and stuff, because the backflip on the spear is slower, and you can actually miss the parry move and get fucked against the highest Lionels because their timing is tighter than the previous ones. Yeah. This was brought to my attention recently, and like, oh. Well, I mean, I guess this wasn't a problem with the normal mode, because they didn't design anything to be that tight, but when they added in this harder difficulty, there was things they didn't plan for.
Yeah. I didn't realize that the spear made your dodge slower.
Yeah, it's like a few frames slower. It's not really too noticeable, right? Like, you wouldn't feel it too much. But if you were to compare it side by side with the other weapons, you would notice that it is framed slower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it appears that it basically makes the hitbox for the weapon basically links fists.
That's interesting.
Just like you have to be touching the enemy to actually do any damage.
Link's fists technically have a hitbox to them.
Yeah.
Because you can punch chests and stuff like that. They just never designed them to be used as a weapon.
Yeah. I'm not sure this guy's fighting a gold Lionel, so I'm not entirely sure if the weapons are actually doing the damage they're supposed to do.
Oh, yeah.
Probably not. I don't know. Interesting. Totally fucks up your weapon.
Yeah. Those gold Lionels, man, they're harder to fight than Ganon.
Yeah. Yeah, they're rough.
Yeah.
And they heal. Sucks.
Yeah, well, that's because everything in that fucking hero mode heals. Fighting just a regular bokoblin with a stick, and it's like, my stick broke, and now it's getting half its life back. No! Yeah. Let me go find another stick before it's full.
Yeah. Yeah, you go through weapons. Plus, the weapons break easier, I think, in hero mode.
Sticks fucking suck in hero mode. Like, you can get through the plateau no problem with just, like, a tree branch. But in hero mode, they're just fucking,
Tiller says, that's interesting because my hitboxes in real life are basically my fists, but I'm working on expanding that.
Well, if you want to expand your hitboxes, you should buy a gun. That will expand the range of it pretty far, maybe even up, depending on the type of gun, like 500 meters. But it doesn't narrow the hitbox out quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good trade-off, though, overall.
Yeah.
Anyway, with that, welcome to the Vomitorium, episode 124. As always, I am your host, The Metal, not in a TV this time for people watching live. And joining me is my co-host, Marsupial Gamer. How you doing today?
Fine. You can probably tell my voice is still halfway gone, but I feel fine.
Yeah,
finally got plenty of sleep.
People who only listen to this are like, what the fuck does he mean in a TV?
Oh. Yes. Metal has broken out of the TV. He's usually in a CRT.
Yeah. I have escaped
Cotton
Pleasantville.
That's right. You know what's funny? I just watched Pleasantville today.
Oh, it's a good movie.
Just out of the blue, I saw it somewhere, and I was like, oh, I haven't seen that in a while. Decided to watch it.
Probably one of the best things that Tobey Maguire has ever been in. I think a very, very underrated
definitely.
movie.
There's some interesting sexual tension between him and his mother.
Yeah.
In that movie.
Yeah.
It's a little bit weird.
Everything about that movie is a little weird.
Yeah. Plus, I gotta wonder, like, did he actually end up getting with the girl that made him the cookies that were supposed to be for Whitey?
I don't know.
It's never clear if he ends up sleeping with her or not.
For my own sake, I like to pretend that they did.
Yeah, I guess so.
It's more satisfying that way.
Because otherwise, he goes home and he's back to his sad life. And it's like, oh, he didn't get any snoo while he was there.
What movie are we talking about? Pleasantville, which is a criminally underrated movie. Now, it was actually pretty popular at the time that it came out, but you don't really hear anybody really bring it up too often anymore.
It's one of those movies where it very clearly had a sort of a political message, but like nobody minded because it was just a good movie.
Yeah. It was also, the message was something that for the most part, it was a battle that was already fought and won. So that's more so why nobody cares. Like, people don't care about battles that had already been won in the past.
Yeah. It was a movie about the 1950s, basically. So, yeah. It wasn't an anti-50s movie. I think I think
it was. What's the term?
Just historical historical.
Yeah, no, I think they looked at it in reverence almost, right? Because there was some positive things about the 50s that were brought up too.
Yeah. It had the interesting trope where the bad guy. There's this big scene at the end where the bad guy looks like he has all the power, and then he gets embarrassed and runs out of the room. Yeah. Like that's such a weird trope. and you never see him again. He
You
runs
don't
right
really
out
see
of
that
them.
trope too much anymore. That was
No,
something
I
that was
know,
popular
it's-
from like the late 80s all the way through the 90s to see in movies, and that trope is just
Yeah.
like gone.
Yeah. I think it would have been better because, it's all about these black and white characters, and when they do something out of character, they turn to color.
Yeah, which I thought was like the coolest thing from like an effects portion where they would like slowly become color.
Yeah, yeah. And in the end, he gets the bad guy to turn color by basically yelling, getting him to be angry when he's supposed to be pleasant.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been better if he had like come to a realization that it was better this way or something.
It would be more cathartic for sure,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I
guess-
think it was also the era where bad guys get to stay bad, and I kind
Yes.
of miss that era because every bad guy, even if they die, a bad guy has to be sympathetic now.
Yeah, yeah. But it was interesting that
Yeah.
he was the one going out there saying, no, we don't want to be violent. We don't want to be unpleasant or whatever. He wanted to institute all of these draconian rules
Yeah.
about being pleasant or whatever, but ultimately being violent or being angry was out of character for him. It was kind of a
Jaws
weird...
brings up a good point. Why is Toby always getting cookies? I wonder if that's in his contract. Listen, if I was an actor
Yeah.
and I could have decide the details of my contract, something like that would be in every single one.
Definitely. Yeah, he gets oatmeal cookies, though, in this one.
I love oatmeal cookies.
Yeah.
Oatmeal
Well,
raisin cookies are my favorite.
I think I like them without raisins. But yeah, they were meant for Whitey though. Poor Whitey.
Yeah.
He never got his
Poor
cookies. Yeah, that's right. Black and white characters, when they embrace modern worldviews, turn into color. Or it wasn't that. It was just if you do something out of character, because
Yeah, it had nothing to do
the
with modern
girl-
worldviews.
for a lot of them, that's what it was, because that was out of character for them.
Yeah.
But for the girl, like, for instance, she turned color when she read a book.
Yeah, a lot of modern
And-
worldviews were brought in necessarily just because of the two people who were sucked into the TV, but
Yeah.
like it could have
And
been anything.
Tobey Maguire turned color when he stood up for himself or stood up for his mother.
Yeah. Because basically
the
what you have to
guy.
understand is this is more of a story of... You can look at this in video game terms, right? There were two PCs that entered the world. And...
Mhm.
I mean, they had their own things for turning colors, but you can look at everybody else as an NPC, and as they started acting more like PCs, they became color.
Yeah, when they basically broke their programming.
Yeah. They had their own agency. That's more of what the color was. It was like a sign of agency than anything else.
Yeah. It's an interesting movie. So, do you want to go first or shall I?
No, you go first.
So, do you remember the Intellivision Amico?
Yes, I remember the big selling point was that the new Earthworm Jim was going to be only on that system.
True, that is one of the selling points. I actually recently watched a video about it, and apparently what they were trying to, and you might notice I'm using past tense, what they were trying to do was sell it as a like a more of a couch co-op, family-friendly,
Like an
kind of
old school
device.
console like the Intellivision, or like even going
Yeah.
up to the era of like the Super Nintendo and stuff like that.
Yeah, so they were really heavily advertising sort of the party type games
Yeah.
and the simple controllers, and like all of the games were going to be family friendly. There was going to be no, I guess, Mortal Kombat or Doom or, none of the more violent games.
Yeah.
Well, apparently, Intellivision has admitted that the Amico may never be released.
Oh, shocker. I mean, at this long,
Yeah.
how long ago was the Kickstarter? It's been like 5 years now or something like that.
Yeah, I guess their original release date was 2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah.
They were supposed to release in 2020 at some point. No, I think it was 4 years ago because Intellivision was revived, I guess,
Okay,
in 2018.
Slightly overshooting, but it's not too far off the
Yeah.
timeline. 4 or 5 years.
And the original release of the Amico was supposed to be October 2020. And it was supposed to release with the new Earthworm Jim game,
Yeah.
among others.
So
Which is
I had
interesting.
some
Well,
hope for it because the current, I think it's either president or CEO, but the guy who's in charge of Intellivision right now is Tommy Tallarico of Video Game Lives, right? And from Judgment Day. And he had a pretty good reputation, but sometimes having a good face on something only helps so much.
Well, guess what? Yesterday, wait, what's the date on this? Oh, that's Wednesday. On Tuesday of this week, Tommy Tallarico stepped down as CEO.
Yeah, that's a bad sign.
Bet
That
you didn't know
definitely
that.
means it's never coming out.
Yeah, so the current CEO is the former Chief Revenue Officer, Phil Adam, which it must be rough to be a Chief Revenue Officer for a company who has, according to the latest SEC filing, produced $0 in revenue so far
Yeah.
in 4 years.
Because you wouldn't count
But yeah.
the initial Kickstarters as revenue. That's investment, is what they would probably write that down as.
Yeah. It says in this SEC filing, it says it is possible that there will never be a fully operational Intellivision Amico. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if they're gonna still do software for other consoles,
Listen.
or if they're just going out of business. Or what.
Earthworm Jim better fucking come out. Put it on the Switch. I don't
Yeah.
care, but it better fucking come out.
Well, that's what I was wondering: are they going to release Earthworm Jim? Now, I don't know. Was that being developed by Intellivision or by a company that was funded by Intellivision
I don't know.
or
I
what?
don't, I
But,
actually don't know the details. I know most of the original Earthworm Jim team was involved in the game, which isn't the fact with the cartoon that's coming out. We even know that Tennant is not on the cartoon, though he did have input on the game. Not like, he owns the IP for the comic side of things. His input for the game, I heard, was very loose. It was he didn't have like direct control or influence on the story or anything like that. But he's mostly on good terms with the team. I don't know what that means. That can mean literally anything.
Yeah, I'm guessing it was a consulting role at best.
Yeah.
So they raised only $17 million to date, and they're seeking another $5 million, but that would only fund them for another 9 months. And so I don't know what the problem was. I don't know if they just couldn't get the hardware right, or couldn't get. It says it's possible the failure to release the product as a result of a change in business model upon the company's making a determination that the business model or some other factor will not be in the best interest of the company and its stockholders.
I'm going to have two possible things that may even overlap, right? So here's my two guesses. Guess number one. The supply chain shortage for electronic parts probably affect the idea of the business model, since they were going to have to mostly produce these things themselves, in conjunction with other distributors and stuff. But the supply chain has been screwing a lot of stuff up since late 2019, because we were already seeing a blockade prior to any of the COVID stuff. It only just got worse and worse with the pandemic. The second one could also be that much like Sega going bankrupt on the hardware thing back in the day, they just realized software was a better direction to go. And these two things may even overlap. Both of them might be a case. There could be other reasons, but those would be my two guesses.
Yeah, maybe they couldn't get the cost down to a point where it made financial sense. Like they couldn't get enough orders or something.
Yeah.
Couldn't get enough interest. And so it was like, well, we're going to end up losing money on this thing. But all I can say is, if you give me $17 million, I will make revenue within 2 years. I guarantee.
Well, they were probably going about this in the dumbest way now. Like, you know what they should do? They should have got something that was readily available and cheap for the most part. One thing that hasn't been affected too much by the supply chain distribution, for some reason, are Tegra chips, which are pretty powerful, right? I mean, there's been a microchip shortage in general, but and there's also been shortage in RAM, and there's been shortage in GPUs, but the Tegra chips seem to be fine. Like, even with the older models, Nintendo's not really having a problem with that part of their supply chain. So I would have just centered their console focus on party games doesn't need to be that strong, and even with the new generation, it could be fairly strong. And Tegra chips are cheap, right? You can make an entire lightweight computer on the cheap focused around that. I think they were just going traditional hardware for consoles.
Yeah, I would have gone the Switch route and make a handheld with a screen if they could.
All of these handheld computers that are like competitors to the Switch out.
Mm-hmm. But if they had used the latest Tegra, unlike the Switch, it would have been more powerful. Yeah. For really not any more money. Now, the only downside would be, I don't know how difficult it is these days to get screens. It's my understanding there may be a shortage of screens, but yeah, the chips don't seem to be a problem at the moment.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they could have done a handheld and like maybe even included, an Android emulator or something.
Yeah.
To make it more interesting. I don't know.
Heck, they could have made something as lightweight as a fucking Raspberry Pi. I mean, those aren't hard to develop,
It seems like trying to make a whole console, the market's so flooded. Yeah. It's just, I don't see that.
And you're also not a monolith. Like, Nintendo or all these people who make their stuff from scratch for the most part, right? Like Microsoft, Sony. Mm-hmm. They are monoliths that have these huge distribution and supply chains that can mass produce this shit. If you're going to start off as like basically a revitalization of an indie company, you're going to have to start small, right? You could just have the prices of Raspberry Pi go up. Gameotron just hopped in and said, have you seen the price of a Raspberry Pi at the moment? That comment makes me think they went up. But I'm not saying make it out of a Raspberry Pi, just something as lightweight as one. It's not that hard.
Is the Tegra a CPU or a GPU?
I'm trying to think.
Or both?
I think it's both. I think it's integrated.
Does the Switch have a separate? Is it just the one chip, basically?
I think it's just the chip. And that's integrated directly to the motherboard.
It's funny how there's all these consoles coming out. Like, if you're not paying attention, you may not know. It's ridiculous. You've got, and I'm sitting here buying them all.
Yeah.
I've got the Retroid Pocket. I got the freaking, and they're awesome and they're really cheap. I got the Zelda Game & Watch, and I don't know what else I have around here. Oh, I still have my Wii U controller over here. And there's, what's the name of the, there's a company that's making basically Game Boys again. Game Boys and NESs and SNESs that actually run the games. They're not like this. This just runs ROMs. But the I forget what it's called. Analog Pocket.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Is that it? Yeah. Yeah. So you can buy now basically a brand new Game Boy that runs Game Boy games and Game Boy Advance. And you can buy an NES, essentially. An NES player. It plays actual physical cartridges, and an SNES and Genesis, all from this company, Analog. You'd think in television would look at that and be like, ooh, handhelds is where it's at.
Yeah, that.
Let's do a handheld.
Or even at the very least, look at the freaking Retron, right? Like, and those aren't that expensive to make. They're not cheap to buy, but from a production line, they're not that expensive to make. And those have all kinds of docks for different things. So if you only needed whatever you were putting on for your system, or even if you did it all digital, that would make it even cheaper. Like, I don't see how they couldn't at least meet the production line for the people who backed it. Actually, there's a problem there too. So most individuals and stuff are kind of safe from this, especially with the barrier of buyer beware when it comes to backing things on like Kickstarter and Indiegogo. But they're incorporated. They're a small corporation, but they're incorporated. They actually might be liable for fraud if they don't at least give some type of return. Because I've seen that happen with some incorporated entities with Kickstarters before. It depends on the nature of their promises.
Well, you're also assuming that they have any money.
Yeah.
I mean, if they run out of money, which they currently, if they don't get the $5 million, they're essentially out of money. And if it, presumably it's like a C Corp or an S Corp or something, in which case they're most likely completely protected from liability. So I don't know that. I mean, not the company. You can sue the company, but the CEO is protected. So.
Oh, no. Individuals are protected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know that.
But if the company has no money, then there's nothing you can get out of it.
Yeah.
But if for some reason they are hiding the money somewhere, then they're definitely liable for fraud, because where did all that money go?
Yeah. $17 million over 4 years is not very much.
It's not, but it shouldn't have been over 4 years either.
Yeah. But it says like they even have debt, basically.
Yeah.
They have $3 million in outstanding loans, and they've already made millions in prepayments for electronic components. So it's like, I don't know, it's flushed down the toilet.
Yeah. That sounds like.
So I think it's RIP in television. Was there a Kickstarter? Was that what it was?
I don't remember if it was Kickstarter or Indiegogo, but it was crowdfunded.
Because I looked on Kickstarter and I couldn't actually find it.
Because I remember people backing it.
So I mean, so that 17 million is just from investors.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know how much they got from crowdfunding. But I can't, for the life of me, find their crowdfunding campaign.
Yeah, I can't either. I remember it was on one of these sites.
Might have to like search Google for.
Yeah, it might have not have been one of the big ones.
Crowdfunding. Start Engine. Is it Start Engine?
Maybe.
Fundable.
I know some of these other ones, like Fundable, takes you can be a private investor, but it's mostly looking for corporate investment. So that might have been where they got most of the money from. Because I remember crowdfunding was in all of the news for it. But crowdfunding is such a loose term since there are sites that count themselves as crowdfunding, but it's mostly like corporate investment and stuff like that.
It looks like from Start Engine they only got $54,000.
Yeah. Well, as long as like if the crowdfunding was mostly just like business investment from like firms and stuff like that, I have no problem if they go bankrupt. I just don't want individuals fucked. You know, if you blow money from investment, it's like, yeah, you really should have a return on investment, but also at the same time, most of these like the businesses that throw money towards these investments have so much in the bank that something like in television going down isn't really going to hurt any of them.
Well, now they were taking pre-orders. Did you have to pay for a pre-order?
I don't know. I would assume so. I mean, that typically pre-orders come with some type of down payment at the very least.
Yeah, I would think you could get your money back, or I would hope. Maybe not.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean,
not.
if they go bankrupt, you're shit out of luck.
Yeah. And no money to give them back.
Exactly. Especially the fact that they're in debt because a bankruptcy judge is gonna pay back the debts first before.
Oh, hey. Thank you, Dillard, for tipping $5.
So anyway, R.I.P. Amico, I think.
Yeah, probably. And maybe Earthworm Jim. I really hope that game gets finished, but it was being published directly by Intellivision, so if they're in danger of going bankrupt, is that game even going to come out?
Yeah, I don't know what it would take. I don't know what the operating system was like or whatever. I don't know what it would take to port it to another system.
I wouldn't be surprised if the operating system was literally just a modified version of Android.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Well, that was my story. Well, I have another one, but you can go.
Okay, let's see. Interesting things. Oh, yeah. So, we talked about this before. I didn't think this was going to happen just because of the way publishing rights usually works, but Disney is one of the largest corporations in the world. Netflix is removing all of its Marvel shows, including Daredevil and Jessica Jones. We don't know where they're going at the moment. They are part of the greater MCU, always have been. They even talked about the incident that happened in New York in like the very first season of Daredevil, referring to the Avengers incident. They're probably going to Disney Plus.
Yeah. I mentioned to you that I recently rewatched all of Daredevil. And they actually mentioned the whole incident in seasons 2 and 3, I think, as well.
There's actually quite a few knockbacks to the actual MCU, but they always left it very vague.
Yeah.
But Vincent, as Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, showed up in Hawkeye as well as the exact same character. So they're trying to officially tie them together. So I'm thinking, it says they're all going to Disney Plus, already confirmed. I didn't see an article confirming it, but I may have not found anything more recent.
I mean, that would make sense.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that's where it's going.
I might have to go back and watch Jessica Jones. I know Dillard is saying that, implying that he did not like that, but I liked the first season, at least.
I thought the first season was really strong. The second season, my issue was it was like an empty sandwich, right? Like, the first 3 episodes were pretty good. The last 3 episodes were pretty good, which is like half the show, because I think there's only 12 episodes in that season. But like the middle 6 were just slow and nothing was going on.
Yeah. I like I like that guy I don't know who the actor was who depicted the Purple Man.
Oh, that
he
was
good.
David Tennant, who had previously played Doctor Who.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I'm not a
Yeah,
fan
I
of
thought he was
Doctor Who,
great.
but I always thought he was a good actor in the episodes that I saw, and I was excited to see
Mm-hmm.
him. He was disappointed to play the Purple Man. Because when he
How?
got into it, he was expecting, and this is, I guess, low budget, because everybody was like that. Daredevil didn't get his costume till like the end of the fucking season. He was expecting to actually be like body painted all purple, since in the comics he is all purple. But at most it was like he'll wear a purple suit, or maybe this scene will have a purple tie or something like that.
That would have been weird. Why is he purple in the comics?
I forget. I was
even
actually
understand
never super big into Jessica Jones. I've read some of it, but I really didn't get into Jessica Jones until her story started getting fused with like Luke Cage's and stuff because they got married.
Kilgrave.
Yeah.
Well, of course, because of exposure to various unnamed chemicals.
Always, always.
That's why he was purple.
It's why freaking Daredevil is fucking blind. And everything. It's just chemicals.
Is oh, you know what? I actually did look this up. I was curious because as I was watching Daredevil, I was wondering what the deal was with Bullseye, and apparently, now I don't know if this was always the case or if it was retconned or what, but apparently Bullseye is a mutant officially. He is like an X-Men type mutant, and that's why he has his ability.
I don't know if that was always the case. I think maybe they left it vague, but he's been officially a mutant for a really long time. By this point in time, he's been a mutant for a long time.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting because I was watching and I was like, how is he so amazing? Like, you know, like where did he get his abilities? And then, oh yeah, sure enough, he's apparently, at least that's the current story. So I liked Daredevil.
Yeah.
The Netflix series, but I'm still not getting Disney Plus.
Oh, me neither. See, I have this wonderful thing called piracy. But if it reduced some of the shows, I'd be happy because I would love to see a couple of them get continued. Some of them not so much. I don't know. Maybe if they get better directors on them, which Disney doesn't have that good of a track record for.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I really liked Punisher until like the second half of season 2. Season 2 was pretty weak compared to season 1. Daredevil I thought was pretty strong all the way through, but then I said like Jessica Jones, pretty weak season 2. I liked Luke Cage, but I also acknowledge that it was pretty weak by comparison. It was disappointing too. Like the one time he said "Sweet Christmas" was like a subversion of it. It was kind of just like a nod to people. It's like he should have been saying that shit left and right. It's because they didn't want a blaxploitation character, but Luke Cage is a love letter to blaxploitation. He's not an insult, you know. Yeah. And I thought Iron Fist was pretty weak, but not from necessarily a plot side. It was just execution, and part of that was because they decided to start filming Daredevil season 3 already before Defenders had even come out, and they needed this stunt coordinator who was supposed to be the choreographer for Iron Fist as well.
Mm-hmm. Was there only one season of Iron Fist?
I think so, yeah.
I don't remember. Okay.
If there was a second one, I didn't see it.
Okay. I couldn't remember. I might have to go back and watch that too. Because I think I liked Iron Fist.
Yeah. There were parts I liked. Iron Fist was also really bad at juggling the multiple stories that were going on at the same time. Like, all the stuff going on with Danny, I liked. I didn't really care for the, like, brother and sister story of the people he grew up with. It was an okay idea. Yeah, with, like, the dad who...
right.
Yeah. The like, the law firm or whatever, like... or the
Yeah.
business. Yeah, and the idea was kind of good, but the execution was just wonky and all over the place, and it just wasn't as strong as the other half of the show.
Yeah. Yeah, the stuff where he found out his company was dealing with the hand and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And his brother was a drug addict and all this stuff. It's like, yeah. Or it wasn't his brother, but it was...
Well, it was like his best friend
The guy
growing
who-
up. Like the guy and the girl were their fathers were like business partners and knew each other, so they grew up like basically cousins.
Right. So anyway, yeah, Dario's basically saying, if you have kids, it's like Disney Plus is almost required. Which I understand.
But see, if I had kids, I don't know if I would teach them at that age, but I would probably just pirate everything and then tell them how I got it later and teach them the wonders of piracy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, alrighty then. So, Sony is up to their old tricks again.
Oh, what are they doing this time?
They're censoring again.
Censorship.
Someone asked me, well, it didn't ask me, I think asked, the Void, like, when did Sony start doing this censorship stuff? And I was like, when they moved to San Mateo, California in 2016.
I think it was slightly before that. They were preparing, because they had already basically culturally been an American company for quite some time. Like, maybe somewhere between half a decade to a decade before they moved there. But yeah, it really cranked up to 11 once they moved to California.
Yeah. Oh, here's someone I don't know if they know, but suggesting that they did Earthworm Jim in Unity.
Oh, that's not.
Well, that's the case.
Put that on anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's a game called Martha is Dead that is a rated M for mature game.
Oh, yeah.
And it features at least one scene where you cut the face off of somebody and put it on your own face.
Yeah. Well, that is a
Hannibal.
A rated M type of thing that you would expect.
Yeah. Well, Sony doesn't like that. They don't want it on their system, so Martha is Dead for PlayStation has been delayed. So they're releasing it on Xbox and PC, but for PlayStation, it's going to have to be delayed because they were told apparently at the last minute, you got to take this out. Yeah. And I don't know what else, but essentially they just tweeted out yesterday from a company called Wired Productions. Martha's Dead. Let's see. With regret, we've had to modify the experience on the PS5 and PS4 versions, with some elements no longer playable. This is a small company too. After over 4 years of passion and hard work, developer LKA now requires extra time to make these unplanned changes. So, well, interestingly though, it will still launch digitally on February 24th, which is the original launch date, but the physical retail release will be delayed an unknown amount of time.
Which is weird, right? Because physical, I don't get the argument of censoring a game on your system. Because that's the whole reason like rating bureaus exist in the first place, and it's harder for kids to get a hold of a physical game that is rated above what their ID says they can get. It's not impossible. Actually, most of the time, parents don't even look at the rating and they just buy the game that the kid acts. But it's fine if a parent buys a game for a kid. It's not like the kid can walk into the shop and really buy the game itself. This isn't the mid-aughts where GameStop employees would just look the other way. They could get heavily fined for stuff like that now.
Yeah.
But digital it's very easy for a kid to get a game that they shouldn't because they can just log on using their parents' account. Parental controls don't work so much when they can just select your user. You actually have to put parental controls on your own user too, and most people forget that. That you can just easily bypass because you know the code off the top of your head. And your credit card is already saved on your account anyway. Like, still, I mean, from liability and market perspective, your parents are the ones who bought it, so Sony really shouldn't care. But if you're talking about actually worrying about who this is going to, the digital marketplace for anyone should be the bigger concern because that's the one that's easiest to bypass.
Yeah. Well, I'm guessing that they are able to make the changes fairly quickly and apply it to the digital version.
Yeah,
right
but
away.
setting out for print and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I just hope they didn't already print out a bunch for the PlayStation.
Yeah.
And have to scrap them.
Well, we wouldn't have to scrap them
Sony...
necessarily. Here's the real issue, right? Because even though all those discs are write-only, you can rewrite them. You shouldn't, but you can rewrite them. They could technically use the same discs. It would just cost them a fuck ton to run all of those back through.
Well, then again, yeah, now that I forgot that there was on discs. It's probably not, I mean, discs are pretty cheap. But,
yeah, it'd be cheaper just to reprint them and scrap all the discs, to be honest.
Yeah. But man. Well, if you want the full game, get it on Xbox or PC. Available February 24th.
Yeah. And you know who's not losing money on that? Sony. Because who owns the patent for Blu-ray discs that you have to print to play them on a Sony system? Yeah.
What I don't understand is, why did they spring this on them 2 weeks before launch?
There's a 6-month approval process for frickin' PlayStation. And everybody knows, well, it's not like I'm going to plan my global launch for 6 months after I send it in because, we might not get approved. Everybody goes through Sony first before going everything else, which means they probably thought they were already approved if they were doing a global launch on all systems.
Yeah. No word on it coming out on Switch.
Yeah. But you know what? I mean, as long as it's properly rated, Nintendo would probably be okay with it. They don't seem to care as long as things are rated right.
Yeah. And, that's the particular scene is just a speculation, but it's funny because some people on Twitter, I'd say 10 to 15%, appear to be in favor of this censorship, specifically because the scene that they are guessing is what's being censored is particularly gory.
Yeah.
But it's if you don't like it, don't buy the game.
Glacier
most
says
90% of the people
mad.
are no.
Yeah, he says I'm still mad. The conspiracy theory is that Michael Jackson was fed up and was almost in the clear to purchase Sony, and they killed him with the doctor's help. I don't think that's true. That doesn't even sound remotely true. I don't think Sony killed Michael Jackson. I think Michael killed Michael. I don't think maybe some people had incentive to make sure the doctor looked the other way, but I don't think anybody needed help with his habits.
How much would Sony cost? $100 billion? $200 billion? I don't think he had that much money. I mean, maybe he could buy a big enough percentage of it to basically be a controlling owner.
Yeah, but I don't think you can technically assassinate a drug addict with their own drugs. That is technically true, but I really wouldn't consider it assassination if that person was likely to OD anyway. That's just speeding up the process.
No, apparently, according to Google, Sony is worth $81 billion.
Yeah.
I don't think Michael Jackson had $81 billion.
I don't think so. Plus, you'd probably have to pop the offer, so
Yeah.
Well, even if we roll back the clock, maybe they were only like 50 billion at the time. Who knows, right? But again, you're gonna have to go to 100. You have to top the offer. You can't just give them what they're worth.
Yeah. Was Michael Jackson even a billionaire?
I don't know. I thought he was pretty much, but he still had money, but he was comparatively in the gutter compared to what like he used to be near the end of his life. Like he had lost a lot of his money. At one point, he was rich enough to buy out the entire Beatles catalogs. He was actually buying all kinds of stuff left and right. But I think that also led to like a bankruptcy at one point in time.
Mm-hmm. Of course, when you're, it's like, but if you own the entire Beatles album or Beatles collection, bankruptcy, running out of money isn't that big of a problem. You can just sell that.
It's just, You don't even have to sell the whole thing. You just sell like half of it. Like.
Plus, I'm sure he had constant royalties.
Yeah. But it's one of those things where it's like bankruptcy doesn't really last that long. You just might need to auction something off to float until the next payment comes in.
Yeah, I'd basically just be restructuring the loans so that you could pay them off more slowly.
Oh, but also it was Michael Jackson, right? Like, assume he ever ran out of money. You know how much stuff that it was in his place that were unique that he could just auction off one random thing, sign it like this was Michael Jackson's random vase that was sitting in his hallway.
He could sign a fucking piece of paper and sell it for $1 million.
Say bankruptcy for famous people is not the same for bankruptcy for just your average regular Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well.
So, let's see. What else is interesting that we got? Speaking of selling things off, basically everything outside of the book publishing rights for The Lord of the Rings is currently up for sale. The franchise is, like, for games, movies, all that stuff, is currently valued at about $2 billion. And the current likely bidder is, as you would guess, Amazon.com. Who has even said that if anybody else posts a higher offer, they'll match it.
Now they're bidding $2 billion?
I think they're going with the estimated worth first, but this is from Wednesday. It was a story we missed. I don't know if it came out while we were on the show. I didn't find out about the news until after we got off. There could be a higher bid by this point.
So were they licensing the IP for the show? Is that how that was working? Okay. So they wouldn't have to do that anymore. They could just make whatever they want. Interesting.
Yeah, so there was a corporation that was called Saul Zaent's Company that acquired adaptation rights back in 1976. And back in 76, adaptation rights basically meant everything that wasn't the book itself. Cartoons, movies, games, whatever. I mean, even a game back then would just be like a fucking Atari low pixel like game moving across a game. Yeah. But still, it was like the rights to everything. And they were even the ones that licensed the Peter Jackson trilogy back in 98. And apparently it's for sale. Warner still remains some of the rights via New Line Cinema. But basically, they haven't made a statement why they want to sell. It's up for sale. I don't know if it's because Christopher Tolkien died recently, within like the last couple of years. Actually, it was probably just last year, I think he died. My timeline's foggy ever since 2020. That might be a reason, because he might have been like the contact or whatever. Could be pressure from the Tolkien Society. I don't know. Honestly, as long as it doesn't end up in the hands of the Tolkien Society, that already makes me slightly happier, because I fucking hate them. But Amazon's not much better.
Yeah, apparently the Amazon TV show is shit.
Yeah,
It's going to be awful by the looks of it. There's a I don't know who it is. There's a Twitter account called theonering.com that's not the Tolkien Society, and apparently they were saying that they had been they were consultants on the movie.
Yeah.
Do you know who that is?
No, I'm not familiar with them.
TheOneRing.com is apparently okay. They have a website. I'm trying to see if there's a who about or a who are we kind of a thing. But apparently it's sort of a competing entity. It's just called The One Ring. Started in April 1999.
Oh, so like after the movie came out. All right.
No, that's before the first movie.
Sorry, after the movie was announced.
Right. But they were apparently consulted on the movie. And I guess it's just a Tolkien fan community, I guess. And they seem good. They were disputing a lot of the crap that the OneRing.net, the Tolkien Society, is that right? That's the Tolkien Society.
I guess. I don't know. I don't know their actual website.
Yeah, they're the ones basically passing off all this bullshit about saying, oh, Ian McKellen, got a lot of pushback for being gay, or people said that a gay Gandalf would ruin it, and everyone's like, what? Whoever said
I never heard that. I'm sure there probably were in some very small random corners, right? Especially back then, the internet was nothing but niche communities. So I'm sure there was probably a niche community somewhere saying that, but it was not a widespread opinion that anyone held. And I was in the fucking Bible Belt at the time of all places,
Yeah. I don't think anybody even knew he was gay. I didn't know he was gay until years later.
Oh yeah, I didn't. I think I was probably a senior in high school when I found out, which would have been like a decade later.
Yeah, I probably didn't even find out he was gay until after Return of the King.
Yeah.
At which point I was like, oh, interesting. Anyway.
Good for you. I mean,
so nobody cares. So yeah,
you're an actor. I assume like a good chunk of them are gay because you get eccentric people in acting, and eccentric people tend to be on the tail ends of things.
Yeah. So yeah, the .net group was saying that, and they've been talking about the Amazon thing, calling people all kinds of ists and phobes, and claiming that Tolkien was all about diversity, inclusion, and equity, and blah, blah, blah. And the OneRing.com has been coming in here and saying that's all bullshit.
Yeah.
So they seem to be the reasonable site that's basically saying, because apparently Tolkien, when he wrote his stories, one of his goals was to create a distinctly English mythology. Because he was seeing a lot of mythology from the Middle East and Africa and Asia and all this stuff, and he was like, where's the English stories?
Yeah, and even from like other nearby European countries all have their like mythologies.
Yeah.
And one of the problems is there was strong mythology in that land before the Saxons came and sacked everything as they do and took over, because there was a strong Gallic mythology there from the Irish and Scottish people. So he's like, he took his Anglican background, looked at like the structure of the Old Testament for like how the world was kind of made. I mean, the hierarchy in the pre-Middle Earth thing is almost the same as like the heavens, and then just made his own mythology with languages that he's constructed and everything like that. Yeah. And you could argue, if you want to stretch it, that inclusion in the bastardized in the modern sense was something that he cared about, but it was more fairness, right? and camaraderie. Those were the two things that are bastardized into the modern inclusion equity stuff. He cared about camaraderie and he cared about fairness. And you see that a lot with the good people are the ones where the different tribes of Middle-earth act together. Like the Fellowship is a group of a bunch of people who normally would have no reason to even like each other becoming a band of brothers. And you see that throughout a lot of his things. So like you could stretch it, but all of this modern woke shit bastardizes literally everything.
And the thing is, so there's, they put out an image of this dwarf queen who is played by an African-American woman.
Yeah.
And of course, the main complaint with it was that she doesn't have a beard.
Yeah, of course.
Because it's like, wait a minute, dwarf women are supposed to have beards. And of course, they twist that into, oh, you just don't like her because she's black. It's like, nobody said that. Literally, nobody said that. But the problem is, in these types of stories, there are different races. Like, there's a human race.
Yeah.
And then there's elven race, and then there's dwarves. And people have tried to superimpose Caucasian and black and Asian.
Well, because there's even different breeds and tones within the races, but not to the degree that they're trying to do here. Like, if they wanted to, they could have made, they're called the gray-skinned dwarves in there. Now, when he refers to the gray-skinned dwarves, knowing him, I don't believe he actually means that their skin was gray. I think what he's talking about is like what you consider like Scottish or heavily Nordic people blue-skinned, where they're so pale that they are almost blue. I think that's what he meant. All dwarves are pretty pale. They live underground. But you could have stretched it. It's fantasy. You could have just taken the gray-skinned dwarves. You could have body painted over some people, whatever, made them actually pretty like a dark gray. It would have been fine. There are things you could do there.
And there were humans that looked different. There was
to the west.
Remember.
They get darker. They're like Mongolian looking people and stuff over there. And
yeah, that's what I was going to say. The people who came with like on the ships and on the Oliphants and all that stuff, didn't they look kind of Asian?
Yeah, they were heavily based off of not like they are Mongolian, but not like the way we see Mongolian now. Going back to the Empire of Tartary, right? The Tartar. That's basically what they represented.
Right. Sort of like, I think of Oliphants, I think of Hammurabi kind of, crossing the Alps on elephants, that sort of thing. But yeah, then they're trying to superimpose modern views of race and all this stuff on top of this world in which there are already defined races.
Yeah.
And they're kind of redefining them, and it's just
and
screws up the whole mythology.
You don't have to change things to even still have allegories to real world racism and lessons and stuff, because they're already there in the book. Yeah.
I mean, look at, Gimli and Legolas hated each other at the beginning, just from pure racism. And by the thing is, too, friends.
If you did put a beard on her and actually dressed her up to look like a dwarf and everything, I don't think most people would care. If you just said, oh, well, we would try it out a bunch of people and she was the best person on the job. Most people don't give a shit, especially in a fantasy setting, when it is actually just the best person for the job.
Hmm. But they have the necklace with the Doritos on it.
Yeah.
Did you see that? Like the little squares.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, this looks horrible. And of course, people look at these images, and that wasn't the only one. People had problems with Galadriel. She looked weird. And it's ridiculous. They're like, this doesn't look right. There are problems with this. And like, istophobes.
Well, the biggest problem, too, was their official statement that came not even in reply, but on the onset, because they knew there would be pushback, where they said that the modern version of Middle-earth needs to reflect our modern world. I'm like, no, it doesn't. It's It's literally an old story in a fantasy world that's supposed to be mythological. It's not supposed to necessarily reflect our world at all. It should reflect ethics and morality like any mythological story should be. There should be some allegorical connection to the real world, but it shouldn't reflect our modern world. It isn't our modern world.
Yeah, did the movies in the early 2000s reflect our modern world? Did the cartoons back that they made, was it in the 70s that they made, like The Hobbit?
I think The Hobbit might have been in the late 60s, but or the others might. I don't know. It's either late 60s or early 70s. That's close to where it is. Let me look it up real quick. Let's see.
No, they just stuck with the source material. So, but now the source material is going to belong to Amazon, so they could do whatever the fuck they
Oh, no,
want.
it was later. It was 77. Okay. For some reason, probably just because they did it in such an old style that it could have been like anywhere in that fucking decade.
Yeah.
I love Rankin Bass, though. Like, everything they do. Even their freaking puppetry claymation stuff.
Yeah.
I also like that movie way better than the Hobbit trilogy that we got. I only need the one animation. I don't need 1.5 good movies. Where the third one still has a good climax, but slags along at the beginning, and the second one has a fucking love story that was never in the book to begin with.
I watched The Hobbit when I was a kid, and Gollum scared the shit out of me in that one. I think it had Gollum actually disappearing, being invisible for part of it.
Yeah. Bakshi did make a 70s Lord of the Rings movie. I believe he made his first, which covered the first two stories. It had both Fellowship and Two Towers in it. And then Rankin Bass made a Return of the King and Hobbit film. And the Return of the King is kind of like built to be a follow-up to Bakshi's film because it never finished, but, you know, it's a different company and production crew. Actually, a few years back, probably more than a couple now, but a few years back, I did a panel, kind of like a commentary with a group of people, including one of my favorite creators on the internet, #1 Marmaduke fan. If you don't follow him, you should, especially with his shit posting. It's so good. But a bunch of us, actually Mark Pellegrini was also in the commentary, and a bunch of us did a commentary of The Hobbit. It's still on Marmaduke's channel. We have a point where we say start. If you watch the movie when we say start, it lines up perfectly. Leo Convoy, the Thundercats review channel, was also there, which was a good overlap because the studio that worked on it, one of them became also the studio that made Thundercats later on. You could tell because they have like the same clawed hands on Gollum, and there's a bunch of like same animation techniques and things like that. It's a really good commentary that people should check out. I'm not saying go out of your way, but next time you feel like watching The Hobbit, just go to #1 Marmaduke fan channel and sync it up. Watch it at the same time.
When was that?
Oh, I'm trying to remember. You know what? I could find it by going to YouTube because I have a playlist that I put in called Other Shit I've Been In. That I just like anytime I'm on somebody else's show, I put it in there. Let's see.
I guess if I search for The Hobbit on his channel.
Maybe, yeah. Just gonna wait for this playlist to load.
Animation Geeks discuss The Hobbit by Rankin Bass.
I think that's it.
Movie starts at 1955.
Yeah, you just skip up there.
Animation nerds.
It was a good panel. I also had to keep muting myself because I couldn't help but sing along with the songs since I know most of them by memory.
The very first person to show up is you.
Of course.
This was May 2020.
Yeah, okay, so it was only a couple years.
Almost 2 years ago.
Yeah. Listen, if number one Marmaduke fan invites me to anything, I'm going to be the first person to show up.
Yeah. Wasn't he? I'm going to put a link in the chat.
Yeah.
Nerds discuss The Hobbit. Wasn't he the one that did the meeting of the Joshes?
Yes. Yes.
The battle, or he live streamed the Battle of the Joshes.
He live streamed Josh fight. Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, that was a uniquely pandemic thing to do. Yeah. I think.
Well, he's a Josh, and he was in the neighborhood, so. I love his name too.
Or did that happen before the pandemic? I don't remember.
No. It had to have been after.
Yeah.
Because we talked about it on the show, and I didn't actually start the show until after the pandemic started.
What were you going to say about him?
Oh, it's like his name. Is such a funny one. Because I don't even think he's even particularly a fan of Marmaduke. I don't think he dislikes it, but I think the whole point was there was this joke by your boy Zach back in the day where he's like, man, you can find a channel on everything, right? There's a fan for everything. There's even going to be a number one Marmaduke fan somewhere, and that just became a running joke. So he made that his username. He was always in like the live stream chats and stuff like that, and that's how he started his channel. Great perspective. If you want somebody who went through art school and actually speaks the entire like postmodernist lingo and can break down all like this bullshit that's going on now, he is a great person at doing that. But also, he does really good reviews of like random manga and comics and stuff, and he makes shit posts. You gotta love a channel that's still willing to shitpost. Very versatile channel. I highly recommend people check him out. Yeah. Oh yeah, Joshua Hughes had to change his name on Discord to Jason after the Josh fight.
Because he didn't win the Josh fight.
Yeah. There can only be one. And it was a little kid, because who was going to take that away from him?
Exactly.
Though we all know the best Josh is my man Jesus Christ.
What?
Yeah, well, his name is Yehoshua.
Oh, okay.
Right, which is actually Joshua. That's where the name comes from. So.
Oh, interesting.
It's the same as the prophet Joshua from the Old Testament. And they decided all the other Joshuas, because the name Joshua, there's like 20 of them that show up. There's the prophet, but then it was a common name after that. So there's like a bunch of minor ones that show up in the Bible. But then, like, for some reason, I guess to keep Christ important, they decided to keep the Greek version of his name, since the Old Testament or the New Testament was originally written in Greek. And he is Jesus, as you would say it in Greek, instead of Yehoshua. But that's Josh. I don't know. Prophet Joshua is pretty cool too.
Interesting history. So here's a question for you. How do you just lose 6.5 exabytes of NAND flash memory?
I don't know. Did it like a freaking electromagnetic pulse go off, or?
Apparently, Western Digital had some contamination at 2 of its NAND flash fabrication facilities, and I guess had to scrap 6.5 billion gigabytes of flash memory. So expect a significant price spike in SSDs pretty soon.
Yeah.
Gotta warn you. But yes, it was reported yesterday that they lost 6 billion gigabytes of memory.
Because SSDs are
It's a lot of
already the more expensive form of memory anyway.
Yeah. Although for a while there, the prices were going down.
Yeah.
And I think we're on par with, standard platter, whatever you call it, hard drives.
Well, I know they were probably going to continue to go down, but SSDs were also slightly being hit by supply chain shortages.
Yeah.
Not to the point that we couldn't supply them, but more weren't coming in, so it's whatever was already in stock. So that's why it flatlined. I'm sure it's going to go up after that. I mean, that's a good chunk of stock that's just gone. So
Yeah. How do they at what point did they realize? I guess after they made 6.5 billion of the chips. So,
yeah.
Crazy.
Oh boy, it'd be a real shame if somebody just took like a one of those whirly birds, the two winged copters with a giant electromagnet and just sweeped over one of those sites.
That would be a shame.
Yeah. Just wipe all of it.
Yeah. Oh, what else is going on?
What else is going on? Well, apparently FMVs are back to being the hip new thing.
Oh, yeah.
They really caught on the first time. I mean, I wouldn't say they never didn't. There's some noticeable or notable FMVs in the past. Maybe not even full games. I mean, Night Trap's Night Trap. We don't want to remember Night Trap, but
I do. I want a Night Trap.
Things like Red Alert used a lot of FMVs in it, incorporated into the game. And they're always pretty good. But Square Enix is getting into the FMV game with a project called Centennial Case, a Shijima story, which is a live-action mystery adventure directed by Koichiro Ito of Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. It's also being produced by Junichi Ehara, best known for his work in the Nier Automata franchise, which is a sub-franchise of his own now because there was a spin-off to the spin-off. Why, I don't know.
Yeah. What's that, the Nier Replicant or something like that?
Yeah. No, Nier Replicant is a remake of the original. There's a mobile spin-off that goes specifically with Automata, because Automata is a spin-off of the Nier games. Replicant's just a Nier remake. But then there's a mobile spin-off of the spin-off. So it's weird that you can have sub-franchises of things, but then again, Nier is a follow-up to the Drakengard series, and then you have the entire Shin Megami Tensei series if you want to talk about sub-franchising. So, I'm not going to question it too much.
So, by FMV game, you mean it's like you said, it's actual actors.
Yeah, so it's going to be
filmed.
like Night Trap.
Yeah, and you can just control sort of what they do to some degree, control them at certain points.
And because it's modern, there might be some level of CGI that can redirect certain parts of the scenes, but for the most part, it's just going to be full motion video.
Or Phantasmagoria. Would that be considered an FMV game?
I know it includes FMVs, so I guess. But that'd be Red Alert includes FMVs, so would you consider that an FMV game? No, it's a real-time strategy game that just has FMVs in it.
Well, Phantasmagoria was a point-and-click adventure a la King's Quest, but
had
the main character. Yeah, the characters were just filmed people.
Yeah, the Learning Company also did later versions of the Oregon Trail, right? On a remake to the original, and then a 2 and a 3 that were done in the mid-90s, I think 95 through 98. And they had people that were basically green screened FMV'd into the sites. So when you're talking to somebody, you actually had like a full motion video of the person talking, the shopkeeper, somebody at your little corral of wagons. Yeah. So something like that. I mean, that's how Phantasmagoria worked. I wouldn't call those FMV games, but they were games that heavily used FMV.
It's going to be interesting because I don't know when the last time was that I saw a game like that. Like 20 years ago?
Well, I'm trying to remember the name because, like I said, I think it was like right before you came onto the show. It was with my last co-host. We talked about an FMV that was coming out in like 2020.
Oh, really?
Yeah, let's see if I can find the name of it. It was about a live streamer. You were a mod on her channel. I was trying to tell you about this a little bit beforehand.
But like, how do they look? I imagine they must look a lot better than they did.
Oh yeah,
back in the 90s.
What was the name?
Especially
Gamer Girl, I think was the name of the thing. I don't think it actually came out because there was really big pushback to it.
Oh, it never came out?
I don't know. I don't know if it did, but I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't. It was developed by a company called FMV Future, which meant they were probably planning on making more.
That's interesting. Yeah, here's an article from 2020. This FMV game trailer was so poorly received, the publisher took the whole announcement back.
Yeah.
Oh my god. So I guess they never did it.
Yeah, it was a thriller. I mean, the plot actually seemed interesting, but the problem was that I believe the pushback came from people who watch like gamer girl streamers and stuff, or actually more like e-thoughts, because it seemed to be making fun of it, and you were a mod on the girl's channel, and you were having to like pick up clues because she gets like kidnapped or whatever at some point, and redirect things to the police, and you're trying to like use the stream chat and stuff to like save her somehow. I mean, the concept was kind of cool, but it was also just all over the place.
I can play it.
Yeah.
This is an interesting. Start over at the beginning. I mean, apparently this was going to be a game.
Yeah.
But this looks like a true FMV game because it's all video, but there's interactivity and you're playing militias.
Well, that was the cool part, that because the chat is a thing and the interactivity, it's like, okay, well, this actually makes it a game. And it's almost like it isn't an ARG because there's no interaction with real reality, but playing it would feel like you're interacting with an ARG. Because of the chat and stuff like that. It'd be a pretty cool experience. I mean, they probably could have made a better story. Because who really wants to deal with these, like, e-thoughts the entire fucking game? That would be annoying, having to, like, see this. And I'm not blaming the actress. It's just, like, the character that she has to portray.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So there's more than just the stream. There's texting. There's apparently, like, quote-unquote real life.
Yeah,
where she's like dancing and stuff, but it's almost like
well, there's also like
interactive.
Yeah,
it's almost like it's like a graphic or a
visual novel-ish.
A visual novel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, FMVs are kind of that way if you think of it. If the whole game is an actual FMV game. It's all about decision making, and you can lead into a dead end, which usually is somebody's death or whatever. But FMVs are very similar to visual novels. They're choose your own adventures, sort of, but a lot of them are more like puzzles than that because they have a lot of dead ends.
Oh, it's a shame that never came out. That looked kind of fun.
Yeah, I would have played it. No, from what I've seen, the biggest pushback came from gamer girls and their audience.
Did they think that it would lead to somebody doing something to them? Or?
I have no clue. I think some of them were even saying trigger because this is stuff they're afraid of already happening to them.
Oh, yeah. Trigger warning.
I don't remember the outrage particularly because, again, this was like a year ago.
Yeah. That's what makes for a good horror movie, right?
Yeah. You want to be triggered watching a horror movie. That's like the whole fucking point to a horror.
Yeah. Maybe I should contact.
See if there's a finished version you could play.
Yeah, who is it?
FMV Future, I believe, is the name of the studio.
Wales. It says Wales Interactive. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was the publisher.
I mean, you could probably contact either of them. I remember FMV Future was like the direct developer, like the one in charge of doing all the filming and stuff like that.
Yeah, Wales Interactive was the publisher in the UK. But yeah,
we'll just send GMT down there and see if they have a copy of the game.
There you go. Or if it's not finished, can we buy it off you and finish it and publish it ourselves? Because we don't give a shit about pushback.
Maybe at a high royalty rate, because you got to think of how much work they already put in it. They're going to want their investment back.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
That's funny.
We'll go as high as 20%, no higher.
That's right. Or we'll just give you $1,000 straight, flat fee. Just take it off your hands.
Yeah. We'll pull the ghost stories and redub everything.
Yeah, there you go. That would be awesome.
That would be fun too.
Oh my god, that would be so funny.
I know voice actors. Let's make it happen.
There you go. Yeah. We just redub the thing.
Dude, that could be a fun game, man. I know actors and stuff. We could just do something like that where I write like a serious story that we know it's gonna suck. Like that's the whole purpose of it. But then after everything's filmed, go in and redub everything with like comedic shit.
Oh my god. Seriously, maybe what was it? FMV what?
Future.
FMV Future. That's a weird.
Yeah. It sounds like a studio that really believes that FMVs are coming back. Yeah.
Yeah. That FMV is the future?
You know what, though? Maybe they were onto something. They just chose a bad start for their game. Because, again, Square Enix is making an FMV, and they're one of the largest fucking game companies there is.
Yeah.
Even doing things that are borderline visual novel with Life is Strange. So it's like they know something that's up.
It's interesting. They have not tweeted since 2020 when all this went down.
Yeah. They were probably
seriously. Yeah, well, seriously, I'd be like, hey, guys, do you still have this game? Do you still have the original source code and
just give me a mass file dump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll take it off your hands. We'll pay you royalties.
Dillard asks, what's an FMV? So it stands for full motion video, which is basically it was a compressed video file type that was used back in the days of the Super Nintendo, I think is kind of how far it goes back for consoles. I don't know if computers were doing it slightly earlier, but it's integrating a video clip, usually live action, but technically there were CDI stuff that had pre-animated stuff that you would consider FMVs as well. But it's a full motion video that was put into a game and often used for either a cutscene for explanation, or if you had a full game that wasn't like Night Trap, it was kind of like a choose your own adventure stuff. There's some shooter games in the arcade that were FMVs. There's like a cop shootout game where all of the characters are actors doing things live action, like a bank robbery, and they'll do their tucks and rolls and stuff, and you have to hit them. It's pretty cool. Though, I mean, you could also argue Dragon's Lair is an FMV for most of it. right?
Yeah.
Because you pick the direction, but they're all pre-animated, like cells and stuff that happen.
Yeah. The old Twisted Metal endings.
Yes, Twisted Metal had FMVs in them. There was like a live actor for Sweet Tooth and everything.
Yeah. But the famous ones, famously bad, were like Night Trap was an FMV game. Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, I think, was another one. Where it's like actors acting out, but it's like you said, a choose your own adventure. So at certain points, you can say go left or go right, say yes or say no, tell the actors what to do, and they would all be pre-recorded, so then they would do the next thing based on your inputs. Generally speaking,
it takes a lot of filming to do an FMV. A lot.
Yeah.
Probably
you gotta
more
film
than
every
a movie.
possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Way more.
Because you have to do multiple takes too. So you have to make sure you get a good one, like the clean take.
Yeah. Of every scene, and a player may not even see, may only see 10% of what you, put into the game, because if they only play through it once,
they'll see 10% of the game if they play through it once, and probably less than 1% of the takes that you did.
That's right.
But they were heavily compressed back in the day too, because of file size limitations.
Oh yeah. But I'm serious. I mean, I can't find any other way to contact them except on Twitter. Yeah. I might. I can't. Oh, their DMs aren't open. Well, I might tweet at them and be like, "Hey, FMV Future, would you be interested in getting rid of, your gamer girl assets?"
Oh God, that would be, because I remember too. I was almost ironically and unironically excited for that game when it was announced. Like, I was shitting on it, but it also looked good at the same time. It was just like the plot was kind of stupid, but
I mean, give it to a game studio. Who doesn't give a shit about Twitter or Twitch thoughts, who don't, we don't care what they think. We will publish.
Hell, I could probably, I'm pretty charismatic. If we wanted to redub it into a comedy, I could probably even convince some actual Twitch thoughts to come on and voice over shit.
Yeah, we may not keep it the same, if it's not complete, or if, we might redub it and change it into a comedy or whatever.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, why do these companies, it's ridiculous. A bunch of Twitter idiots scream at them and they're just like, oh, maybe we shouldn't do this. Well, why? Do it anyway.
Oh, that sounds awful. Now I have an awful idea for the Buckler game. Full motion video.
Come on,
in
FMV
the Buckler
video.
Game.
Yeah. Or FMV Future.
Yeah.
Sell us your game. We shall see. We'll see. I don't know if they would have control of the publishers. So maybe I'll tweet at both of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even if they don't respond to you and they do have control, tweeting at the publisher, they might redirect you to the studio.
Yeah.
Because the publisher might still want publishing rights, which is fine if that actually gets the game out somewhere. It just needs to be done.
I don't even understand why you need a publisher anymore. You can submit your own games to Steam.
You can.
I mean, I guess for publicity, but...
Well, and also having a publisher, if they're big enough, guarantees a physical print run. And some people, they want physical prints of their games. Yeah. Of course, if it gets popular enough, you could just be like, hey, limited run. Let's do a limited run of my game that's already popular. We could throw in some goodies.
Or, man, this would be so cool. We could do a crowdfund or something.
Yeah, something. Listen,
maybe it'll never happen.
Any game company that has something that's not too daunting, if you don't want your game anymore, maybe we can work out a deal.
Yeah, if you got bullied out of doing a game that was almost complete by a bunch of Twitter idiots, we'll do it for you.
Yeah.
Get your name out of it. You just collect
leave your
the
name
royalties.
on. We can take it off. We can make a parody version of your name. It's your option. Your option.
Yeah. A parody version of your game.
Yeah.
Just a thought. Anyway.
Yep, that's pretty much all the time we have. A little over.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with somebody else who might like it. Whether you're watching live now, the VOD, or listening to it on any of our outlets later, share it. It helps. And if you really enjoy the show, really enjoy it, consider giving a donation to streamlabs.com/Vomitorium Live. We have already hit our month's goal. But, you know, every penny counts, you know. I'm not against having more money. Just a thought.
Metal needs an analog pocket.
Oh, that'd be cool. And we'll see you guys in the next one. A second thanks to Dillard for today's tip of $5.
Thanks.
Catch you later.
See ya.